Hi everyone, Michal is here and welcome back to our next session. Our next session is with Justin Chen. He is the co-founder of PickFu and his topic is improving sales through consumer insight. So Justin, thank you so much for joining the eCom Power Summit, and I will let you share your screen and we can start.
Great. Thanks for having me. All right. Yeah. So my topic is improving sales through consumer insight. And wherever you are in your selling journey, I hope that you can come away from this presentation with, 1 to 3 new ideas for how to use consumer insights to improve your sales. So who am I? I am Justin Chen. I'm one of the co-founders of PickFu. If you don't know what PickFu is, it's the easiest way to get crowdsourced feedback from your target customer on all aspects from your product, from concept to images to marketing copy, anything that you need to get actual customer feedback from. It's a great way to test hypothetical decisions in a really safe private forum. So it's very different from live testing anything. Basically, we've got a pool of respondents that we're going to pay to answer your questions. So we can tap into people in the United States, Canada, UK, Australia, and Germany, with Mexico and Japan coming soon. And so throughout the presentation, we're going to see a few examples. And just to note, all the examples in the presentation are either our own polls or customer polls that have explicitly made public by them. Okay, so here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to start by talking about some general factors of winning in a competitive marketplace, and then we're going to dive into specific product areas of the product process where you can use consumer insights to give you a competitive advantage. All right, let's start with winning in a competitive marketplace. So I ran a poll on our own platform, and I asked consumers how they shop and decide on what to buy when they're looking on marketplaces like Walmart. And I thought this quote really embodied the competitive nature of marketplace shopping. So he says, I search keyword for what I specifically want at the time. I look at the images, the star ratings, and visual appeal. Then I read the reviews in order to evaluate. It's nothing mind-blowing, but it is a nice anecdotal data point that reinforces that we really need to focus on all aspects of our listing to do well in a marketplace. And so I just want to emphasize even more environmental factors that make something like Walmart Marketplace competitive. First of all, with any of these things, it's about search. Search is the main entry point for most people to find your product, unless you're doing some kind of affiliate or traffic driving off the platform. Your main entry point is going to be through the search. So you really have to focus on optimizing your listings and the content for the search rankings in particular. And knowing your customer intimately and how they're going to react to your product value proposition is going to make a really big difference in how you perform and getting the clicks. Secondly, this is not your corner store where there's one of each product. With the number of sellers constantly increasing on the platform, there's probably every variation possible for your product. And so there's always more competition coming on board. And I don't just mean product variation. Your product is really a combination of your physical product, the packaging, the main image, the price. As more sellers come on, you see every variation of all these different combinations, and that just makes it even more competitive. And lastly, Walmart is such a fast-changing environment. The platform is constantly evolving even faster now. The buyers on there are constantly changing their buying patterns. And then your competitive sellers are also changing their products and tactics. So something that you really need to stay on top of and inside the buyer's mind. So when we think about winning in this competitive marketplace, we need to keep in mind how people search. So I asked this question, when shopping on Walmart, how do you most commonly search for products? And I asked 50 US-based Walmart.com shoppers. And so again, this may not be super surprising, but I think it's important to call out that product type is the way that people search, and very less so around by brand name or anything like use case or problem. So this is good news if you're not a big brand, because it levels a playing field. People are searching for teapots or something like that. They're not searching for the specific brand. And it puts a lot more emphasis on keywords, long tail keyword and making sure your product listing has all the right content to rank in the search results. And here are a couple of interesting quotes from people. When I go to the Walmart site, I have particular product types in mind. And so those are the things that they're typing into the search. After the search comes the ever important click. So I was curious what the factors were that found that people were saying that for clicking on a listing. And so I asked the question, when shopping on Walmart, what are the most important factors in search results in getting the click? And so I did image, title, and price because those are the factors you control the most. Obviously, ratings and review are important, but I wanted to focus on the things that you're able to manually configure. And so I think what's interesting here is that price was the largest factor, and I think this comment kind of embodies it. When I shop on Walmart, it's usually because they offer the lowest price. So there is that reputation that you have to be aware of. So low price options get my attention when shopping in the store or online. And I think when I was looking through some of the other reviews, what was interesting was there was this pattern of assuming that the search was going to bring up relevant results, and the image was kind of being scanned to make sure that, yeah, like these are generally the right things I'm looking for, but price being the main thing to get the click into the listing. And then finally, the last part of the conversion process is, when you get on the listing, what's going to convert you to buy the product. So I did ask the Walmart shoppers again, between images, title, description, video, reviews, and ratings, what were the things that kind of moved them the most? Interestingly enough, description and reviews and ratings were at the top. Images not as high. I think on Amazon, like this actually ranks a little higher for the same question. But it was kind of that similar feedback that the previous poll service, in that a lot of people kind of assumed that what they were searching for was what was being surfaced. And then also they just needed to read through the description and kind of vet that this indeed was to the specifications or the actual product that they're looking for. And then they already factored in the price when they made the click. So really, they were just doing more validation in the description, reading through reviews and ratings to make sure that the quality was good enough, and then making the purchase decision from there. So I thought these were interesting anecdotes from actual buyers. So enough of the high level stuff. Let's hop into different decision points in the product process and how you can use consumer insights. So I'm going to focus on 5 different areas that I think are high leverage for sellers. First being branding, secondly, product selection and design, thirdly, product packaging, followed by price, and of course, the main image. A lot of people know about PickFu for the main image, and what ends up happening is that people will come and they'll test their main image, they'll test it against their competition, and the most common feedback we hear from them is that they read through the responses, and the consumers are actually commenting more about how they didn't like a product's brand or their packaging or their design. And this is, to the dismay of the seller, because these are all decisions that they made, long time ago, probably without any consumer insight. And it's already a sunk cost, right? They already have this inventory. They're trying to make the sale on the marketplace. But if you don't gather your consumer feedback early enough, there's only so much you can do when you're trying to improve conversions or click-through rates at the very end. So this is why we try to emphasize using consumer insights throughout the entire decision product process. So let's start with branding. To kick it off, I asked this question about, on a scale of 1 to 5, how much does branding factor when buying things on Walmart? In what ways is it positive? What ways is it negative? And I think what was interesting is that, we showed earlier in one of the other polls that it was less about brand and more about product type. But I think the brand is obviously a factor when making the purchase decision. So a lot of times, if it's a well-known brand, people associate those brands with higher prices and higher quality. But I think when you're looking for something that just needs to function, which I'm sure a lot of the things that are being sold on Walmart are, so maybe it's like a frying pan or like a spatula, you care more about the functionality than the premium aspect that a brand might bring with it. So this is the opportunity for people to come in that don't have well-known brands to come in at lower prices to undercut the brands. At the same time, if your brand is becoming well-known, you do have that opportunity to raise the price because some people are willing to pay for that quality over lesser known brands. So at the end of the day, I do think it's important to try to build a brand. I know that some people don't focus at all on brand building, but I think when you're trying to differentiate yourself and you're trying to evoke a sense of quality, I think having a brand and like really emphasizing your brand story values is going to make a big difference, even in the long term of your performance on the marketplace. So one of the other things that people test on our platform are their brand names. And anyone who's bought anything on any kind of marketplace has seen their share of, not so interesting brand names that don't really seem like they're have anything to do with the product that they're buying. And so I think this is a big missed opportunity. And if you're trying to start in a home and kitchen line or some kind of luxury clothing line, it's worth running a test like this against your target demographic to see if your branding, your name, is actually resonating. So in this case, they were asking which brand name suits a luxury, unique art business. And so a lot of different options here, which all sound pretty interesting, but Canvas Curator was the clear winner. And of course, every one of our polls does come with responses. And so you'll get like detailed responses like the one that I highlighted here. The same goes with logos. All these great golfing logos. So this seller decided to poll 15 US based people who play golf and found that the option D was the winning one. So all these things are easy to test. Like these all take a matter of minutes. So going to production with names and logos and designs that you're not sure if they're going to resonate is really a risky proposition, because you may get to that point when you're trying to optimize your marketing creatives or your main image and people are not clicking on it, not because of the value that you're offering in the product, but because of the some kind of misleading branding or logo that's just turning them off. Product design is a huge one that you should be using consumer insights for. One customer came up to us and told us a story about how he was stocking diaries, and he had a lot of different colors, and he was actually going to stock a whole bunch of different colors of diaries because he could. And that was what his intuition was saying. But when he ran the pick food tests of what colors people were interested in, they actually skewed very heavily in one direction. So he kind of threw out his initial gut and leaned only into that color. It was a hit. It sold out. No one sold inventory. Now he knows that he can continue to deliver hits on that one specific color. Of course, you can experiment with other color variations, but at least go into your purchasing decisions with a little bit of insight on how the market might behave. So one way to gather feedback on a product design from the beginning is also just to do an open-ended test like the one that I'm showing here, where you could ask, how interested are you in buying this rose gold-plated wine glass? And people will rate it on a scale of 1 to 5, and then give you a lot of open-ended feedback so that you can go back to your design drawing board and make the necessary improvements if there's any negative feedback. And nowadays, it's so much easier to generate 3D renders. A lot of people are also doing AI generation for product concepts. And so if you're designing something unique, please do test your renders. You can test them. You can test variations of your renders against each other. You could test them against actual competition, maybe grab the images from the marketplace and see how your hypothesized product design is actually going to do if you were to go to market with it. And if you're sourcing, maybe you're not doing a unique design, but you're just sourcing from a manufacturer or something that's already off the shelf. You can just grab the images from your manufacturers. You can take pictures of actual samples like this poll here, and you can get a gauge of what your potential sales will be rather than actually buying that inventory and trying to go to market with it. So a lot of easy ways to run these tests. And like the story before around the diaries and different color variations, anyone who's doing anything with patterns, so whether those are puzzles, stationery, clothing, anything where the core product's kind of staying the same, but there's almost limitless numbers of variations that you could print, super dangerous, right? Like it seems easy to want to print all the different variations, but if you do some consumer testing and you find that there's a heavy concentration on a given design, it's probably a better business decision to lean more heavily into that particular design. After that has some success, you can explore other designs that are also resonating well. But just printing a design because you came up with an interesting design is not a great reason to do so. So I think anyone who's bought anything on a marketplace as well has noticed that sometimes when you buy something, there's a particular color or variation that is heavily discounted for a product, and that's a result of a product not selling as well because maybe they shouldn't have printed in that color or that weird design. So save yourself some headache and having to discount at a later time by making sure that the ones that you actually do print have positive consumer feedback on it. And so for all of these different tests, we were kind of focused on testing iterations against ourselves, but at the end of the day, it needs to compete against your competition. So whether it's branding or logos or product design, always make sure that you do a test at the end to validate against your competition, because at the end of the day, you're competing in an open marketplace, and you need to make sure that you didn't just create like the best variation of your own thing, but it's actually something that competes like in an absolute marketplace. Okay, next one, packaging. Packaging is such a huge opportunity to make a difference in your main image. And I think at first it seems counterintuitive when you're selling online that packaging is important, because a lot of times it's just coming in a brown box. But now that more people are including their packaging inside their main image, it really is your blank canvas to pitch your products. As you can see in the poll that we have here, there's the more obvious main image where you're just kind of showing the containers, but then you have another one where you have packaging. It actually says storage bins. There's either more opportunities that you could put, badges around how many are in there, or maybe there's awards that it won, or maybe there's like health and safety things that you want to put on there. So the packaging becomes a really nice billboard for you to advertise what your product is. So it also shows that you're a more serious brand, right? Like you spent a little bit of money on both the packaging design and also the manufacturing of it. So I think it really helps you in the competitive marketplace. And when you're thinking about iterating on packaging, it's iterating on all different aspects of it. And so here's an example where we have a nutritional supplement testing what seems like pretty minor things, right? They're just testing out different color of the font and even the highlighting of the 90 capsules. But you can see how big of a difference that people react so much better to the option B. And products like nutritional supplements are an interesting example because the product itself is essentially packaging, right? The things inside of it, you don't typically see supplements marketed as a bunch of pills, but it's the packaging that you're buying. And a lot of it is a lot more branding that's going to make you want to buy a certain supplement over another one. So if you're in a product category where packaging kind of is the thing that the end user is interacting with, so whether it's supplements or anything like that, maybe cosmetics even, then you need to spend even more time iterating on your packaging, because that's the thing that the consumer is going to be seeing day in and day out, and you want to make sure that they feel good about that. And of course, validate packaging against your competition. So you could spend all day iterating on this, but if it doesn't beat who you're trying to be in the marketplace, then you may not be making the progress that you think you are. Okay, pricing. So pricing is interesting because I think most people think of pricing kind of in a vacuum, like, oh, well, I'm going to set it at this price, or like, everyone else is pricing at this price, so I'm going to set it around there. But my point earlier was that your product is not necessarily just the physical product. I think your product value proposition when you're in a marketplace is the combination of your product, your packaging, your branding, your main image, and your pricing. Like all of these things are factors, and any adjustment in any of them are gonna affect how well you do in getting the click and the search results. And so pricing is one of those knobs. And like the comments said earlier in some of those polls, you could be selling the exact same product, but maybe you're a name brand. Okay, well, now you can move price higher, right? Maybe you're coming into a market against name brands and you need to lower the price. And so it's all just different factors in your value proposition. One way that you could also play with pricing is that pricing doesn't always have to be lower. Pricing can be higher if you're trying out different combinations of things. And one way to experiment with those before, either generating these products or packaging up your products into different ways is to test them hypothetically against your consumers with something like PickFu. So here's an example where a stationary customer tested out different value propositions that not only did different price variations, but also different quantities and even different designs. And so it's very interesting to see that that people wanted, let's see, $15.99 wasn't necessarily the lowest one, but seemed like a pretty good value. Also got a lot of different design variations. So I think this is one interesting test that you could do, especially if you're trying to move your price higher. Sometimes you see like a picture and maybe you want to do like, oh, should I do 3 pictures for a higher price? And maybe that will draw people a little bit higher so that you're increasing your revenue. And another way you can use the pricing, as I alluded to before, is actually trying to experiment with different knobs to see if what price you can come in to that tip the scales in your favor. So, for example, if you're going in a very competitive space, there's a lot of incumbents that have either brand or higher ratings and reviews. Maybe you're coming in at 10 ratings, just like in this one. Is there a price point that I can come in that I could take away some market share? So in these, it's very interesting because you don't necessarily have to win. Like maybe you're never going to win against a huge name brand that has a ton of ratings or reviews. But if you can take 20% market share, that's not too bad. So like what is the price and image combination that I need to come in at to take away enough market share to be a viable business? And these are all things that you could do hypothetically on PickFu, even before launching the product. And that's actually what we'll see a lot of our savvier customers do, is that as they're trying to decide whether they should go to market with a given product, they'll go down all their different ideas that they have, and they'll actually run these hypothetical tests so that they know that, okay, now that if I were to go to market with this main image and this price, I'm actually going to take this percentage of market share. So I feel comfortable investing this much money into my product and actually sourcing it. So a lot of interesting things that you can test here. So I want to finish with the main image because it's the most visible and obvious piece to the puzzle. We see time and time again customers coming to us and saying like, wow, I only spent $50 on a PickFu test, move my click-through rate, multiple percentages. And that's a lasting change that's going to continue to net positive gains. So just something to think about as you're doing the ROI calculation. Let's see. So quick case study on main images. We had a headphone manufacturer that was using PickFu, and they were not doing well against their competition. So what they did, first of all, is they looked at their competition. They noticed that their competition had a more enlarged photo, a little bit more zoomed in. So they took their photo, they enlarged it a little bit. They immediately won 56% to 44%. They started iterating on a few other things. So they started adding accessories. They started showing the carrying pouch that it came with, the 3 sizes of earbud covers that it came with. And they found that the shoppers, as they keep playing with the layouts, they found that the shoppers wanted to see more, not less. They did a final test against their top 7 selling, against the top 7 selling earphones, and they won 60%. So huge increase for them. In the end, they actually ran over 30 different tests, with each one of those tests documented with different goals and uncovering different insights that led to the next iteration. So they were able to relaunch with a higher price and actually see their sales rank rise from 7th to 40th. So they're actually able to price it 10 euros higher than before the image change, and their conversion rate ended up being 15% higher than even their best performing product at the time. They repeated this whole process again with one of their older models of earphones, and were also able to raise the price 2 euros and increase the conversion rate 5%. So really awesome results from very kind of scientific method approach to testing out different variations and trying to understand what their particular buyers, people who are buying these kinds of headphones, are looking for when they're looking to make that decision. So here's a quick quote from that manufacturer. PickFu helps us avoid a lot of mistakes and risks before we start production. It takes months to develop a new product, and you simply don't want to invest in something that people don't want or like in the end. And this saves them a lot of time and money. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to minimize the amount of rework or minimize the pain of unsold inventory, and getting this kind of feedback, getting into the heads of your consumer earlier in the process is going to minimize that pain later on when you're trying to make the sale. Okay, that was a big mouthful. I hope you've got 1 to 3 ideas to try out in your decision-making process. You do have that $50. If you're the All Access Pass holder, you do have $50 in PickFu credit to try it out for yourself. We started by talking about some broader trends. We moved on to specific areas like branding, product design, packaging, which is super essential, I think, to differentiate and advertise your own product. Pricing, play with a lot of pricing, value propositions, play with quantity, see how you can be more competitive. And lastly, of course, improve your main image. Every percentage point you can gain in your click-through rate is going to make a big difference in the overall conversion rate. And
Justin, that was so interesting. I'm sitting in here and I'm like, did you actually guys did all that research about Walmart for this presentation? I'm curious.
Yes. Yeah.
I ran all the time. Yeah. Wow. So you took the time. That was so interesting to know what customers thinking, why they come into Walmart. So many insight. I think, definitely give me a lot of ideas of things to test about Walmart customer. I do have a question for you. Do you think that brands should do, when they do this kind of test for the product, their packaging and a competition, if they sell on a couple of marketplaces, let's say Walmart and Amazon, would you recommend them to run 2 different tests for each marketplace, or kind of we can take the result from one marketplace and apply it to the other?
I think it depends. Obviously, it always depends. I think it depends on how competitive your particular segment is on the different marketplaces, because I think there's different saturations. On Amazon, maybe a certain area may be saturated, but maybe you're the first person who's not a big brand in Walmart, and maybe you don't have to even whatever you did on Amazon might just do really well. But the minute you start seeing all this competition, like, you're probably going to have to start optimizing a little bit different. I mean, I think the other point was a lot of buyers on Walmart do still have that that expectation for lower prices. So that might be something you'll have to experiment with also. Like, maybe it's, maybe you're doing a different kind of combination or a bundle or something. On Amazon, maybe you do something a little bit cheaper that's different on Walmart. I don't know. There's a lot of different things that you need to experiment with, because I think every marketplace a buyer goes into, they're going to have different expectations of like what they expect to find there. And you kind of have to keep that in mind.
Yeah. You touched a really good point in the beginning, that things are evolving all the time. So the buyers that come to Walmart, I'm selling on Walmart for 7 years, and even talking to Walmart and see their data about the buyers, it's evolving, it's changing super fast. So if in the past it was mostly like loyal Walmart customers coming to Walmart, now it's everyone from all different places in the US, from different incomes levels. There is really, we can see more medium and high income people actually coming to Walmart.com. So knowing that, it's super important. And also a really good point is that, we say it all the time, optimize, know your buyers, know the keyword, know how they will search for your product. I think that can be like a really good poll just to ask your buyer, how would you search for this product?
Actually, yeah, I should have shared that one. I think that's really interesting because I would actually run that against Amazon ones, and then I would run it against Walmart or whatever other marketplace you're selling in, because how they search for things could be different, right? How would you maybe put a picture of this? How would you search for this? How would you describe this? And yeah, you may want to go for different keywords on the different marketplaces.
Yes, and it is important to know that Walmart sometimes have different keywords. So the keywords that are working for you on Amazon, they're not going to work sometimes on Amazon, on Walmart, sorry. So knowing your keywords is extremely important. So Justin, thank you so much. That was so interesting. And so real quick, guys, you have a credit from Pickful. So guys, go and test something. Test your product, your packaging, your pictures, how people are searching for you, your competition. Go and use it. It's a great gift. So thank you so much. And we will see you guys in the next session.
Yep. Thank you.